The glass didn't shatter right away. It hit the edge of the table, bounced once on the carpet, then rolled, leaving a faint trail of red behind it, like the room itself was bleeding. That's the first thing I noticed. Not her face. Not the awkward silence that swallowed the entire venue. Not the fact that she was gripping the back of a chair like it was the only thing keeping her upright. No, just the sound of that wine glass tipping over, and the way her fingers trembled as if her body remembered something she hadn't let herself feel in years. I didn't plan to be there. The event was 3 cities away. I didn't even work at her company. Hell, I wasn't even supposed to be at the hotel. It was pure accident, some boring compliance seminar they booked in the same venue. I'd wandered into the wrong ballroom looking for coffee. But the moment I stepped in and saw her standing near the center table, the air around me turned solid. She hadn't changed much, but my reaction sure had. Because the last time I saw Celeste, she wasn't wearing heels and pearls. She was barefoot in our kitchen, sobbing, screaming that she didn't mean for it to happen. That was 8 years ago. The night I walked out with just a duffel bag and a stupid fantasy that she'd call me the next morning and say it was all a nightmare. She never called, and I never healed. Now, here she was, blinking at me like I'd risen from the dead, like I was the ghost in the room. Her eyes flooded so fast it was like someone had flipped a switch inside her. She tried to say something. I could see the words forming, but her voice cracked, and the only thing that came out was a choked, humiliating sound. A whimper. I should have walked away, but I didn't. Because the thing no one tells you is that closure isn't always a peaceful hug or a final conversation. Sometimes it shows up uninvited, in a conference room with stale crackers and name tags, and it looks like your ex-wife sobbing in front of a dozen strangers while the waiter tries not to stare. People turned. Someone whispered, "Is she okay?" I just stood there, watching, and when she finally spoke, it wasn't my name she said. It was worse. She said, "You weren't supposed to see me like this." Like this meant something more. Like she'd been hiding a truth I hadn't even imagined. And just like that, I knew I wasn't over it. Not even close. You want to know what she did? What broke me? What made her cry after all these years? I'll tell you. But don't expect a clean story. Because the truth has teeth. And it still bites. People always assume cheating starts in bed. It doesn't. It starts in small, boring places. In car rides after late meetings. In jokes shared over coffee while your spouse thinks you're at the gym. And he's just helping me with my pitch deck. And he's going through a divorce. He needs a friend. That's where it starts. And that's where I lost her. I found out about Lane by accident. Not through texts. Not through some suspicious receipt or lipstick on a shirt collar. No, Celeste was smarter than that. It was the dog. Our mutt, Wilbur. He was never allowed on the bed. Ever. But that Friday, I came home from a canceled trip, bag still in my hand. And there he was, curled up on her side, wagging his tail like he'd just been fed steak and secrets. The bedsheets were different. Wrinkled. The candle by the nightstand, the one we only ever lit on anniversaries, was burned halfway down. I didn't say a word. I put my bag down, pet Wilbur on the head, and walked into the kitchen where she was pouring herself a glass of Pinot like it was any other evening. She flinched when she saw me. "You're home early." That's all she said. No smile. No hug. Not even a fake one. Just wide eyes and a voice that shook slightly. I didn't confront her. Not then. I wish I could say I slammed my hand on the table and demanded answers, but I didn't. I just stood there, nodding like an idiot, pretending I didn't notice the towel on the bathroom floor that didn't belong to me. Pretending I didn't smell cologne I'd never worn. I waited 3 days. Then, on a Tuesday night while she was making pasta, I asked, "Is there someone else?" She didn't deny it. She just paused, like the words had been circling her mind for weeks, waiting for permission to escape. Her answer? It didn't mean anything. I swear, that sentence could have been a bullet. I would have preferred it. At least then I could bleed and be done with it. But this was worse. Like being emotionally flayed alive. I asked how long. She said 6 months. 6 months. While I was working late, saving up for a trip to Maine she said she wanted. While I was helping her mom with her cancer appointments. While I was learning to cook vegan because she read some influencer's book. She was slipping out of our marriage in broad daylight. It was just once, she added. It wasn't. I know now it wasn't. But at the time, I wanted to believe it so badly that I told myself it could be true. I begged her to come clean. I even offered therapy. I told her we could fix it. Do you know what she said? I don't want to fix it, Emery. I just want it to be over. She packed 2 days later, took her favorite mugs, the blanket we bought on our honeymoon, and left the wedding photo face down on the dresser. No goodbye note. No apology. No dignity. Just silence. For 8 years. And then last Thursday, in that room full of polished strangers and cold hors d'oeuvres, she saw me again. And she broke. But it wasn't just guilt in her eyes. It was fear. Because what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, is that I found out the truth. The real truth. And when I tell you what Lane confessed to me 2 years after she left, you're going to understand why I stopped being the man who begged. Because Lane didn't just ruin my marriage. He destroyed something far worse. I didn't go looking for him. Honestly, the last thing I ever wanted was to see Lane again. But 2 years after Celeste walked out, I was sitting in the waiting room of a dentist's office, flipping through a torn-up travel magazine, when a voice I'd memorized said my name. Lane. Same angular jaw, same fake easy smile. Except now he looked older, like someone who hadn't been sleeping. He was holding a paper cup of water, hands shaking like he'd been caught stealing. He tried to walk past me. I stood up. My whole body felt like static. I wasn't planning a confrontation. I'm not that guy. But something in me snapped. I asked quietly, was it worth it? He froze, looked around to see if anyone was listening. Then he sat down across from me, like he was the one asking for an audience. At first he tried to make it sound like a misunderstanding. It just happened once, he whispered. But I just stared. And that's when his voice cracked. She told you it was only once, didn't she? He said. My stomach went hollow. It wasn't once. It was the whole time you were saving up for that cabin in Maine. It was in your house. In your bed. He stopped, wiped his face. She told me you'd never find out. I remember every detail of that moment. The antiseptic smell, the fluorescent buzz above us, the receptionist tapping on her keyboard. Lane didn't look like a man who'd won anything. He looked like someone carrying a corpse. And when I asked why he was telling me this now, he said, because she ruined me too. She used me to blow up your life. And when she was done, she left me in pieces. Then he got up and walked out before I could say another word. That was the day something in me calcified. I stopped making excuses for her. I stopped blaming myself. But it also planted a different seed, one that grew quietly for years. I didn't want revenge. I didn't want her back. What I wanted was the truth. The whole truth. And I wanted her to have to face it. Not with shouting or court papers. With something much colder, a mirror she couldn't escape. Fast forward to that work event last week. Everyone thought I was just some nobody filling in for my boss. Nobody knew I'd been quietly building a reputation in another division, collecting emails, connecting dots. Nobody knew I'd been invited to consult for the very company she now worked for. She didn't know either. She didn't know she was about to step onto a panel where I'd be introduced as Mr. Emery Lanehart, Senior Ethics Consultant. That's why she dropped her glass. That's why she cried. She wasn't crying because she missed me. She was crying because, for the first time in 8 years, she realized I wasn't the pathetic man she left. I was standing there with receipts, with a title, with eyes that didn't look away. But there's more. Much more. Because before I ever showed up in that ballroom, I'd already seen the file. The one with her name on it. The one that could undo everything she'd built since she walked out of my life. And that's where the Rayal story begins. It wasn't revenge. I need to make that clear. I didn't spend years plotting her downfall or nursing fantasies of public humiliation. I didn't stalk her LinkedIn or check her socials for some petty thrill. The truth is, I didn't even know she worked for Langford and Bell until I got the onboarding packet for my consulting role. That's when I saw it. Buried in the ethics and compliance logs, a flagged incident from 3 months prior, redacted but not enough to hide her name. Celeste V. Hanley. Department, Strategic Partnerships. Internal concern, unreported conflict of interest. Status, under review. I stared at it for a full hour, unsure whether the universe was playing some twisted joke or just giving me a late pass to a party I never asked to attend. The file didn't have much detail, but it didn't need to. I knew Celeste. Knew how good she was at twisting the truth into a shape that looked almost moral. If there was a conflict, it wasn't an accident. She'd always been a master at stepping just outside the rules without technically breaking them. That was her talent. And her curse. I didn't report her. I didn't even mention it. I just said yes to the offer, boarded the flight, and told myself I was going to do the job I was hired for. No distractions. No ghosts. But when I walked into that conference hall and saw her name on the event schedule, not as an attendee, but as a panelist on corporate transparency, something inside me snapped. I couldn't leave it alone. So that night, in my hotel room, I requested internal access to the case. I had clearance now, and what I saw, it wasn't just a gray area ethics slip. It was a full-blown mess. 2 years ago, Celeste had partnered with a vendor who also happened to be a former lover. Not Lane. Someone new. Someone higher up. The partnership resulted in inflated figures, skewed projections, and a quiet bonus Celeste wasn't supposed to receive. There were emails. Private dinners billed as client meetings. A trail. Not enough for jail, but enough to bury her professionally if the right people saw it. And guess what? They hadn't. The case had stalled. Someone was protecting her. That someone wasn't me. But now I was in the room, and I had the whole damn puzzle. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat there staring at the report, asking myself who I'd become. Was this what bitterness looked like? Had I really spent all these years pretending to move on when I was still shackled to her betrayal? I didn't want to be that man. I wanted to be better than her. Smarter. Colder, maybe. But not cruel. So I made a decision. No exposure. No theatrics. Just a conversation. A private one. The kind that starts with, "You have 5 minutes before I forward this to the board." And maybe, just maybe, ends with the truth she's been running from since the night I asked if there was someone else. That moment came the next day. We were in the green room before the panel, sipping bad coffee and avoiding eye contact. She tried to pretend nothing had happened the night before. But I leaned in, slid the manila envelope across the table, and said 6 words that changed everything. "You're going to want to sit." What she said next made my skin crawl. Not because she denied it, but because of what she confessed instead. She didn't open the envelope right away. Her fingers hovered above it like it was hot to the touch, like even grazing the edge would burn through her perfectly curated version of the truth. I didn't say anything. I just watched. I wasn't angry. I wasn't smug. If anything, I felt empty, like I'd spent years building toward this moment, only to find it had nothing left to offer me. She finally looked up at me, her voice barely audible. "You knew?" I nodded. "Since Denver?" I didn't answer. Then, without opening the file, she pushed it back across the table and whispered, "You think this is the worst thing I've done?" That stopped me cold. She leaned forward, her eyes glassy but sharp, and said something I'll never forget. "Lane was just the beginning. You were never supposed to know about Denver. Or Toronto. Or Thomas." I swallowed hard. I knew the name. Thomas Riker, head of acquisitions at a firm we once tried to partner with. She told me the deal fell through because they didn't align with our ethics. The truth? She killed the deal on purpose, right after spending 2 nights with Thomas at a private executive summit. He'd offered her a job. She didn't take it, but she did take something else, something I never knew until now. "I used him to get access to the RFP," she said, her voice hollow. "Used you too. You introduced me to their team, remember?" I remembered. She laughed, not out of amusement. It was bitter, sharp, the kind of laugh someone lets out when they've been suffocating under their own guilt too long. I didn't cheat because I was in love with them. I cheated because I hated the life I built. The one you kept trying to save. The one where I was the wife of the guy who always believed things would get better if we just kept trying. It hit me like a freight train. I was never fighting for us. I was fighting for a version of her she'd already buried. I asked her why she was telling me all this now, after so many years of silence, after the tears, after the glass of wine, after watching my life unravel like some side plot in her success story. "You scared me," she said. "Not with the file. With the fact that you're still here. You're the only thing I ever walked away from that didn't fall apart without me." I wish I could say her words made me feel strong. They didn't. They made me feel used, like a placeholder in my own life. And yet, some part of me, the pathetic part, still wanted her to hurt. Still wanted her to feel what I had felt on that night. I came home early, saw Wilbur on the bed, and realized something had shifted in the fabric of our world forever. So I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You're lucky this file is the only thing I brought with me." She flinched. "I'm not here to destroy you, Celeste," I said. "But I'm also not here to protect you anymore." She nodded, slow and silent, as if she already knew it was over. Not just the panel. Not just the partnership. Us. I stood up and left without shaking her hand. But as I walked out, someone else stood by the door. A man I didn't recognize. He was watching us. And the moment I passed him, he made a call. I didn't know it then, but the story wasn't over. Because the file wasn't just dangerous to Celeste. It was dangerous to someone much higher up. Someone who had everything to lose. And I had just walked into a bigger fire than the one I thought I was lighting. At first, I assumed he was part of the event staff. He had that generic corporate look. Dark blazer, pressed shirt, clean shave. But there was something off. He wasn't holding a clipboard. He wasn't checking name tags or sipping coffee like the other aides outside the panel room. He was watching. Still. Intent. Like someone who already knew how this story ended, but wanted to see the moment it all cracked open for himself. When I passed him, he tilted his head slightly and murmured something into a Bluetooth earpiece. Just 5 words. He has the envelope now. My skin went cold. I didn't turn around. I kept walking through the maze of beige hallways, back toward the lobby, heart pounding like a drumline in my throat. I knew that voice wasn't for me. It was for someone above both of us. And suddenly, the entire tone of what I thought was a personal reckoning twisted into something much bigger. Celeste's file wasn't just a quiet HR concern anymore. It was a live wire, and I had grabbed it with both hands. I made it to my hotel room and deadbolt the door, the envelope still tucked under my arm like it was radioactive. My mind was racing now, not about her, not about Lane or Thomas or the way she casually admitted to dismantling our marriage like it was a failed PR campaign, but about who else was tangled up in that file. Because something she said kept echoing in my ears. You think this is the worst thing I've done? She wasn't talking about affairs. She wasn't even talking about me. She was talking about Langford and Bell. About people like Thomas Riker, who still sat on their board. About deals that had been buried. Bonuses hidden in off-ledger accounts. About someone who'd rather torch their own career than let a whistleblower like me walk into the open with proof. I spent the night backing up everything on encrypted drives. I uploaded files to a cloud nobody knew about. Sent copies to my personal attorney with instructions to open only if I went dark for more than 72 hours. I didn't think I was being dramatic. I thought I was being careful. Until 3:14 a.m. when someone tried to open my hotel door. The handle jiggled once. Softly. Then again. More firmly. No knock. No voice. Just silence. I crept toward the peephole. No one. But when I woke up the next morning, there was a business card slid under the door. Black. Unmarked. Except for one name in silver print. William C. Marston, Corporate Risk Solutions. No phone number. No title. Just a name I didn't recognize yet. But by noon, I knew exactly who he was. He wasn't security. He wasn't PR. He was a cleaner. The kind of man companies call when files go missing and reputations need erasing. And now he knew my name. What he didn't know, what nobody knew, is that I'd already sent the file somewhere else. To someone who hated Langford and Bell even more than I did. And that's when the game truly started. Because this wasn't just about Celeste anymore. This was about a cover-up. And I was the only one left standing between it and the light. You always think you'll recognize the moment your life crosses the line. That there will be some signal, a bang, a scream, a gunshot, something dramatic to mark the point where everything changes. But when it happened to me, it was a soft click. Just a mouse click. Just a screen. And my name, gone. It started the next morning. I tried logging into the internal portal to check my case notes, to make sure I hadn't missed anything before the second round of executive interviews. My password didn't work. I tried again. Reset request, denied. Account locked. That was strange. So I called IT. I wasn't angry, just confused. The woman on the other end sounded helpful at first, but when I gave her my credentials, she paused for a long time. Then she said something that still gives me chills when I think about it. We don't have any record of a consultant named Emery Lanehart affiliated with this account. It took me a second to respond. I told her that was impossible. I'd received access 2 weeks prior, signed a contract, even been issued a corporate ID. There were emails, sign-ins, badge scans, meeting invites. Sorry, sir, she repeated. There's nothing under that name. I hung up, checked my inbox. Everything, every message, every calendar invite, every document I'd uploaded, gone. I thought maybe it was a glitch. So I called the onboarding coordinator, the woman who'd offered me the job. No answer. I left a message. Then another. Then I checked her LinkedIn. Her profile had disappeared. Next, I checked the Langford and Bell directory. No mention of Celeste Hanley. No Thomas Riker. Not even the department she supposedly worked in. And then it hit me. They were wiping it. All of it. I wasn't being threatened. I was being erased. No calls. No emails. No ominous warnings. Just silence. And when I got back to my apartment that night, there was a plain white envelope taped to my door. No stamp. No return address. Inside, one printed sentence. There's no reason to keep looking, Mr. Lanehart. No signature. Just a folded business card. Same silver ink. Same name as before. William C. Marston. That night, I didn't sleep. Not even for a minute. I sat with a baseball bat beside my bed like an idiot, watching the shadows shift on my windows. I felt like a character in a bad thriller, the sad kind, where the audience knows the hero's not going to make it. But here's what they didn't count on. I may be pathetic. I may be the guy who got cheated on, ghosted, humiliated, and dragged through a marriage where love turned into paperwork. But I'm also stubborn. And I'm not alone. Because I didn't send the file to just anyone. I sent it to someone who's hated Langford and Bell for years. Someone they fired. Someone who has nothing left to lose. The next morning, I got a message from a blocked number. A single line. Got it. Going public. They thought I was the weak link. But I'm not the story anymore. The news broke 2 weeks later. It didn't start with some dramatic expose or a press conference. It was quiet at first, just a leaked memo published by a niche compliance blog, then reposted by a mid-tier financial watchdog site. But the document attached? It was the file. The file. The one with Celeste's name. The one with the altered reports, the unreported relationships, the bonus payments, the dinner invoices labeled consulting strategy. Everything. And just like that, the dam cracked. I watched it all unfold from my apartment, sitting on the same lumpy couch where I'd once eaten frozen burritos alone while watching her Instagram stories. Now I was watching her name scroll across a news ticker. Except it wasn't just her name anymore. It was Thomas Riker's. It was Langford and Bell's. It was a dozen executives tied to shadow deals and quiet corruption. But here's what surprised me most. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel like I won. I felt free. Celeste didn't return to work. She didn't speak publicly. A source close to the board told a journalist she'd resigned to focus on her health. And maybe she had. Maybe she cracked under it. Or maybe, for the first time, she simply had to sit still and feel the weight of what she'd done, not just to me, but to everyone who trusted her. I never forwarded the file to the board. I didn't need to. The person I'd sent it to, Ruben, my old manager, handled everything. Turns out, after Langford and Bell let him go for budget reasons, he'd been sitting on a trove of his own receipts. All he needed was the spark. I gave it to him, and he lit the fire. People think closure looks like revenge. But for me, it looked like an afternoon with no more secrets in my inbox. No more texts I didn't want to read. No more dreams where she comes back and I take her in like a fool. It looked like walking my dog. Yeah, I got a new one. Not Wilbur. He passed. This one's name is Jonah, and he has this dumb habit of barking at pigeons like they owe him money. It looked like waking up one morning, checking my phone, and realizing I didn't care what she was doing. It looked like peace. And you know what? She reached out. Eventually. Just one message. No greeting. No apology. Just, I saw the article. I guess I deserved that. I didn't respond. Not because I hated her. Because for the first time in my life, I didn't need her to know what I was feeling. I had myself. My work. A dog that loved me for no reason. And a life that, finally, belonged to me. So if you're still reading this, and you've been through something like it, the betrayal, the silence, the moment where someone looks at you and says, "You're not enough for me." Just know this. One day you wake up, and it doesn't hurt anymore. You don't get even. You get free. And that's worth everything.